Welcome to the Honest Reflection Podcast with your hosts, Cody Hairston and Nick Woods. Here, we want to help you reflect on your week and be honest about your relationship with God. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hey guys, glad to have you in our conversation again this week. And it's me and Nick as per usual. How's it going, Nick?
Good. It's good to be with you again, as usual. And I always look forward to our chats. We're reflecting on how we can live in a way that the fruit of the Spirit can be seen in us. And today we are going to continue reflecting on faithfulness as a part of the fruit of the Spirit. Last episode, we talked a little bit about what it means to be faithful to God and how God is faithful to us. Today, we're going to think about what faithfulness looks like in our relationships. And we're going to start with neighbor, kind of as has been our trend. And so we're talking about these things. And we know neighbor is a term that covers a lot of ground. And we'll say a little bit more about that. But I think we just want to encourage you to think about who your neighbor is and kind of how Jesus addressed that and how you might show faithfulness to them. That's kind of a big thing that we're, if you have a takeaway, that's maybe a big takeaway for us today. As I was thinking about this topic, though, I realized, and Cody and I were chatting beforehand, I realized that our faithfulness to Jesus in a lot of ways that's a motivator. It's a foundational motivator, right? I am striving to be loyal to him. And that drives a lot of my choices, decisions, and actions. Here's who I am because I'm trying to be faithful to Jesus. And when I serve others, it should be because I'm trying to be faithful to Jesus. So we're trying to be loyal to Jesus. And in doing that, that drives our choices to be a loyal person or to be known as a faithful and loyal person. I think we're going to use that interchangeably as we discuss this today. But we should want to be known as somebody who is first loyal to Jesus, and that should add to our ability or for others to be able to depend on us. So, Cody, what are your initial thoughts today about bearing faithfulness in our neighbor relationships?
I think my first thought is just the importance of being faithful to our neighbors because, like you said, we have a lot of neighbors. Neighbor covers a lot of ground. And so there's a sense in which we have a ton of opportunity, right? Yeah, we have a ton of opportunity to demonstrate our faithfulness, our dependability to our neighbors. And so because there's more opportunity, I do think that it raises the stakes a little bit. It at least should be on our mind even more because, again, we're just going to keep bumping into it again and again and again. And, if you remember when Jesus was asked that question of who is my neighbor, and then he tells that story of the Good Samaritan, the answer was everyone, right? Everyone is your neighbor in some form or fashion. And so the people around us, those are our neighbors. And so anybody that's around us, anybody that we come into contact with, whether it's a brief interaction or it's somebody that we talk to on a regular basis, they should be able to count on us, at least count on us to do what we should do for them. And so I'm thinking about the cashier at Walmart. They should be able to count on us to be who we're supposed to be in that interaction. Your kid's soccer coach should be able to count on you to do what you're supposed to do in that interaction. The homeless man on the median that you drive by every single day going to work, he should know that you are a faithful, a dependable person. And so, like you said, it does cover a lot of ground. And it's crazy because we might discount these interactions, right? Especially the ones that are so brief, like an interaction at Walmart or something like that. But these interactions matter, right? They matter in the immediate sense, and I think they matter eternally as well. And so, Nick, are there any neighbors that you think we need to pay special attention to?
Yeah, of course, like you said, like we've already said, we can go a lot of different directions. But one group that comes to mind as I was thinking about this, because of the way Jesus addresses this, when he's talking to the young ruler in Matthew 19, is the poor, those who are less fortunate and those who are in need. When Jesus is addressing the young ruler, he comes to him and he says, "What should I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus says, you've read the commandments? Have you kept the commandments? And he says, "I've done all these things." And Jesus says, "All right, there's one thing you're still missing. Go and sell all that you have and give it to the poor and come follow me." And I was thinking about that. We always talk about what it means to really follow Jesus and what he's looking for from us. He wants our full and complete self to be following him, but also what it means to be loyal to him is to do things his way. And this young ruler, he was faithful to God in his mind. He was keeping all the rules and the laws, but he wasn't dependable to the people who needed him to be, it seems to be. And I'm generalizing that statement, but when we think about who those who are in need are, they're people who need help. And Jesus is saying, if you're going to follow me, you're somebody who the people who need help can be depended on, and you can be dependable in that sense. So the one thing that he lacked was his, in this sense, maybe if we could think about it this way, his dependability for his neighbor. In this specific case, the poor. So when those who are in need come to someone who is loyal to Jesus, we should help. James says it this way in James chapter 2, when he says, if somebody comes and they, are poor and without and they need help, and you say, go be warmed and fed, James says that's dead faith. That's not faithfulness, and it's not your faith in Jesus. It's dead. It doesn't exist. So then the ones that we help, when we help somebody, when we actually do something to help them, that's showing that we're dependable because we depend on Jesus and we're dependable to him. And Matthew chapter 25, and I'll probably circle back to this at the end, but in Matthew 25, Jesus said, in whatever we do to the least of his disciples, we're doing to him. And they would ask, like, when did we do this thing? When did we serve? When he said, when you did it to the least of these, when you did it to those who needed it, that's when you were doing it to me. So our loyalty, our faithfulness to Jesus, it should be seen in how we speak and treat others, but especially it should be seen in how we treat and speak to those in need, how we help those in need. When we're considered dependable to our needy neighbors, we are somebody that Jesus can depend on. We are truly loyal to him, I think.
Yeah, this is a great example because, even if we don't financially assist somebody in need, there's still a way to be faithful to them, right? Because it's not just about, okay, you gave them X amount of money, because I think we know that loving your neighbor as yourself, it goes beyond just financial stuff, right? In fact, there may be even an opportunity or a situation where we're forking over $20 is actually worse for somebody than it would be helpful. But even if you're not going to actually financially assist someone, I mean, there's still a way to be dependable, right? You still need to do right by them with the things that you say about them, the things that you think about them, the emotions of the whole interaction. And you think about it, someone who's poor, especially someone who's in a situation where they're begging something like that, they probably receive the worst of society on a daily basis, right? With some sense of regularity, they get people calling them names, doing all kinds of crazy stuff to them. And so someone in that situation, they should know that they can depend on me to do right by them, right? Whether I'm actually helping them financially or not, I'm going to treat them like a human. I'm going to treat them like somebody who matters, because they do. And so even if we're not helping someone financially, there's still a way to be faithful to them, to be dependable to them. So I think that's a really good example. Another place where we have neighbors that we need to be faithful to is at work. Obviously, it's, again, I think you said in the beginning, it's so hard to narrow this idea down to just a few different people. But I think at work especially, there's so many different people that we're interacting with that the stakes are just raised up. So whether you're talking about dealing with your employer, your employee, or your coworkers, those are all people that should see us as dependable, right? So my coworkers, my employers, they should know that I can be counted on to accomplish tasks that I said that I would complete. Now, I'm not talking about times where your employer gives you some unreasonable amount of work, because sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you're already up to your eyeballs with stuff, and then somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I need you to do this too." Right? I'm not talking about those types of things. But if you jump out and say, "Hey, I'll do it," the expectation should be that you're gonna get it done. In fact, I think that should become a character trait, to the point where you get things done so much that in the times where for some reason you don't get something done, people are like, "Oh wow, man, that's shocking," right? Because this person is just so dependable. They're so faithful to their tasks. I think this goes back to to Jesus saying, let your yes be yes and let your no be no. That idea of like, when you say you're going to do something, you should just do it. That should just be who you are. Because sometimes at work, we become the types of people who just say, hey, I'll do it because we want the recognition and we want people to think that we're going to be those types of capable people. Well, if we're living by the Spirit, we're actually going to be those people. There's not going to be a need to try to fool people into thinking it. We're actually gonna be those people. Additionally, again, still just thinking about there at the workplace. If I'm faithful, then my employer knows that I'm gonna accurately punch my time clock. You know, many people work jobs where they have to log hours, say, you know, okay, I worked on this for 2 hours or this for 4 hours. If I'm faithful, if I'm dependable, well, my employer, they're never gonna have to wonder, man, did Cody really work those 2 hours or is he messing around? Or I know Cody's on the clock right now. Is he really working? No, no, no. If I'm dependable, if I'm faithful, my employer doesn't even need to worry about those things. And I think that's why it's so important to root this faithfulness thing in our faithfulness to Jesus, like allowing that to be the motivation. Because if the motivation to be a dependable employee is something different, maybe it's so that you can get more hours or get a promotion or something like that. It might work for a little bit, and you might get one promotion here or one promotion there, but overall, you're not going to be developing the character trait that Jesus wants you to, right? And then if something else jumps in the way and it calls your attention more, maybe this job over here is going to offer more work, or maybe you're going to have an opportunity to make more money over here or doing this other thing. You're going to be just quick to jump around. But if we're faithful, if we're dependable, that's going to come from somewhere maybe just a little bit deeper. And so I think we can be a major blessing to people around us if we just focus on being faithful and dependable at work.
Yeah, I think that's so important, such a big part of our life, right? We spend so much of our time around our coworkers, our employers, or as an employee, or around our employees. That's such a big part of our life that has to be an area certainly where we're known as that. And the Bible actually addresses that quite a bit. I think we should be able to see the tangible results of God's faithfulness to us, our faithfulness to Jesus, in the way that we treat others that we're around on a daily basis. When we're at work, no matter if we're employer or employee, others should see and recognize that we are striving to be loyal and dependable. We're striving to be faithful, and so that kind of puts us on a spot where we're responsible to redirect that recognition then to the one to whom we're loyal, right? We are known as being loyal, then it's why. Well, that recognition comes like, hey, you're doing a good job. Hey, I appreciate that I can trust you, that I can depend on you. Why? Because I'm loyal to Jesus. I'm serving him. I'm in his kingdom. And that's why. Leadership, serve as you would serve the Lord. The New Testament talks a ton about leadership. The leadership from that New Testament perspective is all about others seeing our faithfulness to Jesus, really. I mean, you think about fathers in Ephesians 6, train up and nurture in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Like we're in the Lord, we're training in the Lord. In Colossians 4 to masters, he says, grant justice and fairness. You know, like here's this relationship with God where you've been treated, you want to be treated fairly. You want give that, grant that. And there are a lot of other ways we could go with that in Jesus' teachings as well. The elders, those who serve the church in that way, do not lord your authority over those who you're leading in 1 Peter chapter 5, you know, because Jesus is the chief shepherd. And so we are all working together, but you're serving as employers or leaders. I think it's so important. It should be trustworthy and dependable so that we're shining the light of Jesus and proving that we are faithful to him in all our relationships, whether it's an employer, an employee, a coworker. This is how we're spending our day. These are the people we're around. These are the people who are most going to know whether or not you're dependable. So we prove our faithfulness to Jesus and our ability to be seen as faithful by others.
Yeah, and you're right to point out that we spend so much time at work that it just needs to be something that's on our mind. And really, I think this is one of the ways in which, you know, God is ahead of his time, so to speak. He's wise. He knows how things are supposed to work. And when I think about it, our workplaces are better places when we are dependable people. I haven't talked too much about the employer side of things, but the Bible's super clear that employers need to make sure that they are doing right by their employees. So an employee should be able to count on their employer to pay them well, to pay them accurately, like as much as they should be paid, to not withhold their pay. In fact, there's many verses about employers not withholding pay, because again, it's just when everybody there is dependable, things just seem to go better. I mean, just think about how much drama would be avoided if everybody at work did what they said they were going to do. Right? Think about how many arguments happen because somebody said they were going to do something and they just dropped the ball, just didn't do the thing. All that's avoided when we bring dependability to the table. Think about how much drama would be avoided if people at work, they knew that when they told us something confidential, that they could count on us to keep it to ourselves. Right? I know we all know about workplace drama that comes from gossip and things like that. But if we're dependable, if we're faithful to our coworkers, guess what? That's not going to be a part of who we are. We're not going to be contributing to that. And of course, we're not always going to benefit from our own dependability. Obviously, there are going to be situations where somebody might try to take advantage of that, or there's definitely no guarantee that it's going to be reciprocated. But at the end of the day, we're sowing towards the eternal. We're sowing towards heaven. And so if we're dependable on the job, then man, that's going to be a really, really good thing for us eternally. And I also think this is something else you kind of touched on too, Nick, is I do think our faithfulness can be a major light to those around us. If we can be somebody who is dependable on the workforce or just out in society, that's going to be something that people notice. Because if you've ever worked anywhere, you know that people are not necessarily dependable, right? It's just that's not how people always are. Again, if you've worked anywhere, you know that people can engage in gossip and backstabbing at work. But if we're dependable, if we're faithful, and people can count on us, we're not going to be like that, and we're going to stand out, right? People are going to notice, like, hey, man, yeah, why are you so much different than everybody else? And then, like you were saying, then we have the opportunity to tell them why we're different. Now we have the opportunity to show them that, look, no, I'm not the way that I am because I'm awesome. I'm the way that I am because God is awesome and he's working on me. He's changing me. And so these things, they seem like small things, but dependability can be something that helps people come to a greater understanding and appreciation of the good God that we serve.
Yeah. Amen. And that's always our goal. Like in the things that we do, this whole, like, we want the Spirit to be changing us so that we're bearing its fruit, so that other people see the good things that come from being a follower of Jesus. And then they in turn are able to be filled with the Spirit and bear the fruit that comes from being someone who's Spirit led. And at the end of the day, we're striving to live as faithful servants because we know that Jesus is a faithful master. And so our motivation to serve others is drawn from our loyalty to Jesus. I'm on his side. And we started there with this episode, and that's the motivation. That's our goal. So I think when we live each day loyal to Jesus, we live each day wanting to be found also faithful by him. We haven't talked too much about this specific aspect, but I think this is so important to add it to our motivation. What is Jesus going to say about me when he returns? What is he going to find in me? Is he going to find loyalty to him in me? I was thinking about this because we talked about the parable of the talents recently. And I think our goal is for King Jesus to come and to see us as dependable and trustworthy, like the 5 and the 2 talent servants. You are faithful in a few things. I'll make you masters over many. But to the one, you're lazy and you're sluggish. You're a useless servant. You were faithful in nothing. You just buried it. And so we want to serve others. It's drawn from our loyalty to Jesus. And we want to be found loyal to Jesus. We want to be found as faithful to him. I want Jesus to say, I care about what he thinks. I want him to say, faithful servant. So could Jesus call you a faithful servant? Do those neighbors that are in your life see your faithfulness and experience it as we're reflecting on these things this week? Is God's faithfulness changing you so that your neighbors see your faithfulness to Jesus? And what can we do this next week, maybe to grow in our faithfulness to our neighbors?
Thank you for listening to the Honest Reflection Podcast. If you liked this episode, give it a like, a share, or even a comment to let us know how we're doing. We hope we've helped you think, reflect, and be honest about your relationship with God. And we can't wait to see you again next week.